Hey guys, welcome back to Roll for Cake. No, I'm not wearing a shirt. No, I won't put one on. Here at Roll for Cake, we use random dice rolls, my questionable abilities as an amateur baker, and my white boy taste buds to create, bake, taste, and rate weird, wacky, and wonderful flavor cake frosting combinations. Now, for those new to the channel, my name is Christian. As I mentioned before, I'm an amateur baker. I also struggle to make decisions, so it's easier to get dice to do it for me. I'm also a trained chemist, which means I love to experiment and not just in the kitchen. Now, since YouTube isn't a big fan of me posting what I film in my other forms of experimentation, I'm kind of limited just posting on what I experiment in my kitchen. At the end of last week's episode, we rolled 4 20-sided dice, each one relating to a category: cake type, cake flavor, frosting type, and frosting flavor. And our goal in this week's episode is to create what came as a result of those dice rolls. And a refresh on last week's dice rolls, we were tasked with creating Biscoff Cakepops with Coffee Marshmallow Frosting. Now, can we just pause for a moment and think about how great this sounds? Like, first of all, Biscoff Cakepops just sounds like some viral TikTok recipe, and Coffee Marshmallow just makes me feel all warm inside, so I cannot see how these two things is not gonna go well together. All right, for the uninitiated, let me quickly break these down for you. Now, if you don't know what Biscoff is at this point, I'm sorry, but you're beyond hope. I think even the uncontacted tribe on North Sentinel Island knows what Biscoff is at this point. Now, cake pops are just essentially small, bite-sized cakes on the end of a stick, kind of a mix between cake and a lollipop. Now, cake pops are normally made by baking an entire cake first, crumbling it up, mixing it with frosting, and then you form it into balls. But I've actually found an even easier no-bake version that I'm going to show you guys today. So we have bite-sized, sweet, spiced cookie balls on sticks, which already sound great, but now we're elevating them with a fluffy, sweet, light marshmallow frosting. This can only be good. Now, marshmallow frosting, which as the name suggests, tastes and has the texture of marshmallows. So it has this sweet, light, chewy texture and is made very similar to a Swiss meringue buttercream like we made in this episode, but with little to no butter, which means it's less creamy and more marshmallowy and fluffy and light and chewy. So that's our Biscoff Cakepops marshmallow frosting, and coffee is, well, coffee. I don't think I need to explain what coffee is. So we have the coffee and the spiced cookie. It all just sounds phenomenal and I'm so here for it. So I cannot wait to taste these balls. And on that note, let's cake this, shall we? Add 30 Biscoff sandwich cookies to a food processor and blitz until they form a fine crumb. Now, these are Biscoff cookies, but we're not using these. We're using the Biscoff sandwich cookies. Make sure you use these ones as they are filled with cream. Next, add 200 grams or 7 ounces of mascarpone to a bowl and slowly add 32 grams or 1/4 cup of icing sugar in increments until smooth and creamy. We are now going to add the crushed cookies to the mascarpone icing sugar mix and mix until fully combined. It'll be very sticky. Then add this mix to a silicone cake pop mold, or in my case, I used a silicone ice cube tray. Now this mixture was really sticky. Like, it was difficult to get into the molds because it stuck to my fingers so much. So what I would suggest is put as much mixture as you can into the mold until it overflows, and fill as many as you can up, even though there's heaps of excess, and then grab a bench scraper and scrape it, which forces all the mixture into the molds and cleans up all the excess, and then take the excess from the scraper, fill more molds, rinse, repeat until you have a nice, clean, filled mold. We're then going to add our skewers or toothpicks into the center of each of the molds and place in the freezer for an hour until nice and firm. Now, while our balls are firming up, let's make a marshmallow frosting. Now, this is a nice, easy shortcut version of making marshmallow frosting. There are other more laborious ways to do so, but we're amateurs at the end of the day, and this should hopefully taste just as good. Add 113 grams or 1 stick of softened unsalted butter to a bowl and beat until pale and creamy. Then slowly add 125 grams or 1 cup of icing sugar until fully incorporated and creamy. Then add 5 mils or 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and mix well. And then add 200 grams or 7 ounces of marshmallow fluff and mix by hand until well combined. Now, if you stop here, you have a perfectly acceptable generic marshmallow frosting, which you can use to pipe onto cupcakes or put onto other cakes and leave as is. But this is where we're going to mess with it because we have a job to do. We'll add freshly brewed and cooled espresso, a couple teaspoons at a time, mixing thoroughly to ensure we don't thin the mixture out too much. Keep doing this until we get the desired flavor. Then remove your balls from the freezer and dunk into the frosting, coating it in its entirety and dripping off the excess. Place these on a baking tray and into the refrigerator for the frosting to set. And we're done. A couple nice, simple, easy recipes. The Cakepops came together really easily. The only thing that was kind of difficult was just getting them into the molds, but once they figured out how to do that, it was smooth sailing from there. The only downside, because we used ice cube trays, is that they're more cubes than balls. So I'm slightly less excited to get them in my mouth, but I'm still very excited to taste them. Now, the only concern that I did have was adding the espresso to the marshmallow frosting. I don't think it could handle that kind of load. As we did so, it did start to get quite thin, and I was worried that it wasn't going to set in the refrigerator because we've thinned it out too much. And that's kind of what happened. The frosting kind of spread out onto the tray. Even though the Cakepops were frozen and the frosting was cool, they weren't cold enough for it to set properly and to adhere to the Cakepops. We did get a good coating around there, but there was far more on the tray than there was actually on the pops. But hopefully the flavor shines through. All right, that's enough talk. It's time to taste these balls. Oh, god damn. Oh, that is so tasty. Oh, this espresso punch, and then the Biscoff spice. It's very sweet, but it is good sweet. Yum, another one. That cakey texture, the sweet creamy frosting. Yep. These are good. Oh yeah, make these. Okay, I'm gonna come back. I'll review. I'll see you soon. All right, it's time to actually review the cake. Now, the first thing you taste is the espresso. It is silky, smooth, and creamy and punchy. And there's no bitterness from the coffee because of the sugar. So you're just enjoying this velvety, creamy, sweet coffee-like flavor. Then, as your teeth sink into the cake pop, the flavors start to blend and the spices of the Biscoff just start to poke their head through. And honestly, it goes with the coffee really well. It is a little jarring because they're both very strong flavors. You get this punchiness of the espresso, and then you get this sweet spiciness of the Biscoff. And the downside is once the Biscoff takes the wheel, it doesn't let go. I mean, it's a very welcome journey, but once you're in Biscoff town, there's no leaving. So, flavor. Overall, I think I'd give it an 8. It is very sweet. The espresso does help curb some of that sweetness, but I know it may be too much for some people. I'm a white boy, so I love my sweets anyway, but it is still very, very tasty. I think it could do with a little bit of salt just to even out some of that sweetness, but overall, the flavors are great, and I could literally eat every single one of these. They are so Moorish. I know it's such a white guy thing to say, but honestly, keep them away from me. So texture, the marshmallow frosting is very creamy. It's so silky smooth and velvety, but the espresso edition really thinned it out and it did not set in the fridge. I even had some in the freezer, and freezing overnight, it didn't set. It still stayed runny. And due to how runny it was, just not enough stuck to the cake pop. A lot of it came off, enough to get that espresso flavor, but there was way more on the tray than there was on the actual pop itself. Now, texturally, the cake pop is really moist, but it's essentially just kind of like a sweet mush. If it's allowed to hit room temperature, it just completely falls apart. You have to have them cold, otherwise, again, they're just mush. Now, I did try to butane torch the marshmallow frosting because in the recipe it says that you can do it high heat to try and get that crispy exterior, but it kind of ended up looking like that Nazi in Raiders of the Lost Ark with his face melting off because it was just so runny. It would just melt before I had a chance to solidify. And I think if that had have worked and we'd had that nice crispy exterior, probably would have got an extra point, but I think texture cohesion between the two, the creaminess and the mush, I'd have to give it a 6. The flavors are great, but texture, a bit lacking. Now, flavor cohesion. The flavors go really well together. Coffee and Biscoff, spices and sweet, and then the espresso, they work very, very well together. Now, you do get that punchiness of the espresso at the start, but it gets overpowered by the Biscoff once that pokes its head through. And the Biscoff is a beautiful flavor, so getting that through is really, really nice. It just affects the cohesion of the two flavors because once that Biscoff's there, the coffee is lost, and that's the whole point, is have the two flavors blend together. Now, I think this in part does come down to how much frosting there was on the actual cake pop. I think if you add a little less espresso to try and keep it as thick as possible. It might help more of that frosting adhere to the cake pop. Now you might think, well, if we add less espresso, we're gonna lose some of the flavor. But if we're halving the espresso and then we're doubling the amount of frosting that's on there, they're gonna balance themselves out anyway. And I think this will allow the espresso to float around the palate a little bit longer as there's just more cream in your mouth. But overall, the flavors worked very, very well together, which means I'd probably give flavor cohesion an 8. So overall, that gives us a score of 22 out of 30 or 7.3. Honestly, these are super tasty. Like, the texture's not bad, it's just not spectacular, but you kind of forget about the texture anyway with just how delicious and amazing and prominent the flavors are. So considering how easy these recipes are, I'd honestly make them just so you can experience them and just keep them cold. So 7.3, that puts us second. So not a bad score. Honestly, I kind of want it to be in the 8s because it is delicious and I could eat all of them. And texture doesn't bother me because they just taste too good. And if you could torch those marshmallows to get that crispiness, oh, I think it would just be mwah. Now, with all that done, it's time to roll for next week's cake. So we will start with cake type, layer cake, okay, flavor, Dubai chocolate, okay, frosting type, whipped cream, oh, I can see this working, and frosting flavor. Dulce de leche. So we have a Dubai chocolate layer cake with a dulce de leche whipped cream. So that just about wraps up this episode of Roll for Cake. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the episode or enjoy the idea of this episode, don't forget to like, comment down below any other flavors or cake types, frosting types you'd like to see. I can update the board, that way we can get involved and keep this exciting for you guys. And make sure you subscribe as well so you can stay up to date when I release new episodes. Don't forget to check out my other series, Recipe by Request, which I'll be releasing as well, where I recreate viral recipes or recipes of interest that are submitted by subscribers yourself. And if you'd like to be involved in the show, Recipe by Request or Roll for Cake, follow the link on my profile. But thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Roll for Cake, and I'll see you guys in the next one where we're making a Dubai chocolate layer cake with a dulce de leche whipped cream.